Good day everyone. I am Jess Enriquez from Bachelor of Science, Tourism Management, and for today, I will discuss the lesson 9, Managing and Caring for the Self. Learning objectives. By the end of this module, students will have completed the following objectives. 1. Explain how learning occurs, enumerate various metacognition and studying techniques, identify the metacognitive techniques that you find most appropriate for yourself, explain the effects of stress to one's health, examine cultural dimension of stress and coping, and lastly design a self-care plan. Course content. Knowing the self is not enough. Since who you are is partly made up of your choice, you must have the ability to choose, especially to be better you. In the school setting, your knowledge of yourself should at least enable you to become a better student. This lesson will present several techniques that you can adapt depending on your situation and preferences to make you a better learner. Learning should not just mean studying for your quizzes and exams in school. Learning could also occur outside the confines of a book or classroom, like when you want to acquire a new move in your favorite sport or the skills for a certain hobby, among others. Furthermore, the techniques here are not the only techniques available in months or years from now. New ways of how to study better will be discovered or rediscovered. What is important at this moment is that you learn how to learn these things. We are Homo sapiens or the wise man. We think in the more complex and level than our ancestors and most, if not all, of the other things. But being called wise, not only do we think, but we are also capable to think about thinking, like how the think of things and why we think in a certain way about things. It is like your brain thinks about itself, then thinks about how it thinks about itself. In the context of learner, studies show that when you are able to think about how you process information, and how you utilize techniques while you are studying, you have a higher chance to improving your learning process than those who do not reflect on their methods. This idea falls under the concept of metacognition. Metacognition, commonly defined as thinking about thinking. It is the awareness of the scope and limitation of your core knowledge and skills. Due to this awareness, metacognition enables the person to adapt their existing knowledge and skills to approach a learning task, seeing for the optimum result of the learning experience. So, para tayo nag-aaral dahil sa quiz, parang sarili natin, hindi rin tayo parang nabubuhay dahil gusto natin. Parang nabubuhay tayo para maging isang better person. Metacognition is also not limited to thinking process of the individual. It also includes keeping one's emotion and motivations while learning in check. Some people learn better when they like some when they are challenged by the topic, and other if they have a reward system each time they finish a task. The emotional state and the motivation or a person then should also be at the preferred ideal state for that person in order to further facilitate his or her learning. As seen from the above mentioned definitions, metacognition basically has two aspects. Self-appraisal and self-management of cognition. Self-appraisal is your personal reflection of your knowledge and capabilities, while self-management is the mental process you employ using what you have been planning and adapting to successfully learn or accomplish a certain task. Similar concepts, usually called elements or metacognition and or metacognitive knowledge, or what you know about how you think, and metacognition regulation, or how you adjust your thinking processes to help you learn better. Under metacognitive knowledge, these are the several variables that affect how you know or assess yourself as a thinker. First is the personal variable, which is your evaluation of your strengths and weaknesses in learning. Second is the task variable, which is what you know or what you think about the nature of the task, as well as what strategies the task requires. Lastly, strategy variable refers to what strategies or skills you already have in dealing with certain tasks. However, it must be noted that in order to make self-appraisal and self-management work, you must have an accurate self-assessment. You must be honest about what you know and capable of in order to find ways to utilize your strengths and improve on your weaknesses. According to Waterloo Student Success Office, the following are other skills that can help you in exercising metacognition. 1. Knowing your limits. As mentioned earlier, one cannot really make any significant advancement in using metacognitive skills without having an honest and accurate evaluation of what you know and what you don't know. Knowing your limits also looks at the scope and limitations of your resource of so that you can work with what you have at the moment and look for ways to cope with other necessities. Number 2, modifying your approach. It begins with the recognition that your strategy is not appropriate with the task and or that you do not comprehend the learning experiences successfully. Recognizing, for example, that you are to understanding what you are reading. You should learn to modify your strategies in comprehending your material. You might want to read and reread a page in 5 minutes intervals instead of trying to finish the materials in one setting. You may want to make a summary or code for yourself instead of using keywords or highlighting sections of what you are reading. Skimming. This is basically browsing over a material and keeping an eye on keywords, phrases, or sentences. It is also about knowing where to search for success key terms. For example, you might want to look at the introduction first or the abstract. The table or of contents can also provide you with a quick guide to the contents of the book. Introductory paragraphs, headings, or subheadings, and conclusions can also provide you with an overview of the whole material. This technique works best when you want to get an idea about the contents of a reading material. When you are trying to read through several materials in a limited time frame, or when you want to focus on certain details among others. For rehearsing. This is not just about repeatedly talking, writing, and or doing what you have learned, but also trying to make a personal memory of the learning experience. One of the fun ways to do this is by imagining yourself being interviewed about your task as you try to convey what you have learned. From these sources, you can also insert your opinions, other personal take on the matter. Just be sure that the key concepts are well understood and are still in line with the source material even with multiple rehearsal. Parang sa sayaw, kailangan din ng rehearsal. Self-test. As the name implies, this is trying to test your comprehension of your learning experience or the skills you have acquired during learning. While some materials already come with tests like these books, you can still create tests for yourself. You can make essay question or definition of terms test while you are reading or watching a material. You can challenge yourself in completing a task successfully, maybe in the given period of time. As you may have noticed already, the goal of metacognition is for the student to be self-regulated learning. Education should not be limited by the capabilities of the teachers, the content of school textbook, the four corners of the classroom, and the duration of the academic year or courses. You should have the capability to study, think on your own, as well as accurately evaluate your progress. This is one of the benefits of using metacognitive techniques and strategies. Another benefit is the comprehension and development of cognitive limitations of the learner because the student is now aware of his or her capabilities. Various researches also shown significant improvement in academic performance in any subject and across age range. The student is also enabled to transfer knowledge from one context into another. Other tips that you can use in studying are the following. Make an outline of the things you want to learn, the things you are reading or doing, or the things you remember. Break down the task in similar and more manageable details. Integrate variation in your schedule and learning experience. Change reading material every hour. And do not put similar topics together. Also include physical activities in your planning. Try to incubate your ideas first. Write your draft without doing much editing. Let the ideas flow. Just go with the flow. Then leave your draft at least overnight or around 24 hours. Some even do not look at it for a week and do something else after a given period. Go back to your draft or prototype and you might find a fresh perspective about it. Sometimes during incubation, you suddenly have ideas coming to you. Write them down in a notebook first and do not integrate them into the draft yet. Review what you have written when the incubation period is done. 5. Revise, summarize, and take down notes. Then reread them to help you minimize cramming in the last minute, especially when you have a weakness in memorizing facts and data. Some people are motivated when the deadline is very close together. For instance, and they just review the day before some evaluation and exercise. If you are that kind of person, you may still motivate yourself and have that feeling of urgency at the last time, but by using the aforementioned techniques. Your craving need not to be a desperate attempt to learn but only as a way to energize your brain as you make a final review of the things you have already been studying for a week or so before. 6. Engage what you have learned. Do something about it on a reading material, for example, highlight keywords and phrases. Write your opinions about the matter on a separate notebook or create a diagram or concept map. Some people also learn best by copying the key paragraphs word for word. You may want to look for other definitions and compare or contrast materials. Use your new knowledge during discussions. Just do something about it. As you were reading the topic, were you aware of your metacognitive processes? What changes did you feel as to try use the metacognitive strategies and skills? We encourage you to utilize and adopt the aforementioned techniques in whatever learning experiences you are about to accomplish and find enjoyment and success in learning. Stress. The American Psychological Association 2017 has these statements about stress. Stress is often described as the feeling of being overwhelmed, worried, or run down. Stress can affect people or all ages, genders, and circumstances and can lead to both physical and psychological health issues. By definition, stress is any uncomfortable emotional experience accompanied by predictable biochemical, psychological, and behavioral changes. Some stress can be beneficial at times, producing a boost that provides the drive and energy to help people get through situations like exams or work deadlines. However, an extreme amount of stress can have health consequences and adversely affect the immune, cardiovascular, neuroendocrine, and central nervous system. Since stress is inevitable to life, we have to learn how to handle and cope up with it. More so, we have to be familiar with other approach to a healthy lifestyle, which is self-care. Stress and human response. The American Institute of Stress, or AIS, has distinguished different types of stress and human response to it. Hans Selye defined stress as the body's non-specific response to any demand, whether it is caused by or result in pleasant or unpleasant stimuli. It is essential to differentiate between the unpleasant or harmful variety of stress termed distress, which often connotes disease, and eustress, which often connotes euphoria. Eustress is stress in daily life that has positive connotations, such as marriage, promotion, baby, winning money, new friends, and graduation. On the other hand, distress is stress in daily life that has negative connotations, such as divorce, punishment, injury, negative feelings, financial problems, and work difficulties. AIS 2017. During both eustress and distress, the body undergoes virtually the same non-specific responses to the various positive or negative stimuli acting upon it. However, eustress causes much less damage than distress. This demonstrates conclusively that it is how an individual accepts Stress that determines ultimately whether the person can adapt successfully to change. Selye hypothesize a general adaptation or stress syndrome. This general stress syndrome affects the whole body. Stress always manifests itself by a syndrome, a sum of changes, and not by simply one change. Uh, AIS 2017, the general stress syndrome has three components. One, the alarm stage represent a mobilization of the body's defensive forces. The body is preparing for the fight or flight syndrome. This involves a number of hormones and chemicals excreted at high levels, as well as an increase in heart rate, blood pressure, perspiration, and respiration rate, among others. 2. The stage of resistance. The body becomes adaptive to the challenge and even begins to resist it. The length of this stage's resistance is dependent upon the body's innate and stored adaptation, energy reserves, and upon the intensity of the stressors. Just as any machine wears out even if it has been properly maintained, the same things happens with living organism. Sooner or later, they become the victim of this constant wear and tear process. The acquired adaptation is lost if the individual is subject to still greater exposure to the stressor. The organism then enters into the third and final stage. 3. The last, the exhaustion stage. The body dies because it has used up its resources of adaptation energy. Thankfully, few people ever experience this last stage. Stress diseases are maladies caused principally by errors in the body's general adaptation process. They will not occur when all body's regulatory processes are properly checked and balanced. They will not develop when adaptation is facilitated by improved perception and interpretation. The biggest problems with derailing the general stress syndrome and causing disease is an absolute excess, deficiency, or disequilibrium in the amount of adaptive hormones, for example, corticoids, adrenocorticotropic hormone, or ACTH, and growth hormones are produced during stress. Unfortunately, if stress is induced chronically, our defense response lowers its resistance since fewer antibodies are produced and an inflammatory response dwindles. In the article Understanding Stress Response of the Harvard Journal 2017, it further discusses chronic stress and human body response. Chronic stress is unpleasant, even when it is transits a stressful situation, whether something environmental such as a looming work deadline or psychological such as persist worry about losing job, can trigger a cascade of stress hormones that produce well-orchestrated psychological changes. Stressful incident can make the heart pound and breathing quicken, muscles tense, and beads of sweat appear. This combination of reaction to stress is also known as the fight or flight response because it evolved as a survival mechanism enabling people and other mammals to react quickly to life-threatening situations. The carefully orchestrated yet near instantaneous sequence of hormonal changes and psychological yet responses helps people to fight the threat of or flee to safety. Unfortunately, the body can also overreact to stressors that are not life-threatening, such as traffic jams, work pressure, and family difficulties. Over time, repeated activation of the stress response takes a toll on the body. Research suggests that chronic stress contributes to high blood pressure, promotes the formation or artery clogging deposits, and causes brain changes that may contribute anxiety, depression, and addiction. More preliminary research suggests that chronic stress may also contribute to obesity, both through direct mechanism causing people to eat more or directly decreasing sleep and exercise. The stress response begins in the brain. When someone confronts an oncoming car or other danger, the eyes or ears or both send the information to the amygdala, an area of the brain that contributes to emotional processing. The amygdala interprets the image and sounds. When it perceives danger, it instantly sends a distress signal to the hypothalamus. When someone experiences a stressful event, the amygdala, an area of the brain that contributes to emotional processing, sends a distress signal to the hypothalamus. This area of the brain functions like a command center communicating with the rest of the body through the nervous system so that the person has the energy to fight or flee. The hypothalamus is a bit of command center. This area of the brain communicates with the rest of the body through the autonomic nervous system, which controls involuntary body functions like breathing, blood pressure, heartbeat, and the dilation or constriction of key blood vessels and small airways in the lungs called bronchioles. The autonomic nervous system has two components: the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system functions like a gas pedal in a car. It triggers the fight or flight response, providing the body with a burst of energy so that it can respond to perceived dangers. The parasympathetic nervous system acts like a brake. It promotes the rest and digest response that calms the body down after the danger has passed. After the amygdala sends a distress signal, the hypothalamus activates the sympathetic nervous system by sending signals through the autonomic nerves to the adrenal glands. These glands respond by pumping the hormone epinephrine, also known as adrenaline, into the bloodstream. As epinephrine circulates through the body, it brings on a number of psychological changes. The heart beats faster than normal, pushing blood to the muscles, heart, and other vital organs. Pulse rate and blood pressure go up. The lungs can take in much oxygen as possible with each breath. Extra oxygen is sent to the brain, increasing alertness, sight, hearing, and other senses become sharper. Meanwhile, epinephrine triggers the release of blood sugar or glucose and fats from temporary storage sites in the body. These nutrients flood into the bloodstream, supplying energy to all parts of the body. All of these changes happen too quickly that people are not aware of them. In fact, the writing is so efficient that the amygdala and hypothalamus start this cascade even before the brain's visual centers have had a chance to fully process what is happening. This is why people are able to jump out or the path on of an incoming car even before they think about what they are doing. As the initial surge of epinephrine subsides, the hypothalamus activates the second component of the stress response system known as the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal or HPA axis. This network consists of the hypothalamus, the pituitary gland, and the adrenal glands. The HPA axis release on a series of hormonal signals to keep the sympathetic nervous system, the gas pedal pressed down. If the brain continues to perceive something as dangerous, the hypothalamus release corticotropin releasing hormone or CRH, which travels to the pituitary gland, triggering the release of ACTH. This hormone travels to the adrenal glands, prompting them to release cortisol. The body thus stays revved up and on high alert. When the treat passes cortisol levels fall, the parasympathetic nervous system, the brake, then dampens the stress response. Persistent epinephrine surge can damage blood vessels and arteries, increasing blood pressure and raising risk of heart attack or strokes. Elevated cortisol levels create psychological changes that help to replenish the body energy stores that are depleted during the stress response. By they inadvertently contribute to the build-up of fat tissue and to weight gain. For example, cortisol increasing appetite so that people will want to eat more to obtain extra energy. It also increases storage as of unused nutrients as fat. Chronic low-level stress keeps the HPA axis activate, much like a motor that that is idling too high for too long. After a while, this has an effect on the body that contributes to the health problems associated with chronic stress. Techniques to counter chronic stress. Several techniques to counter chronic stress were presented in the same article, The Health Harvard 2017. Relaxation response. Dr. Herbert Benson, Director Emeritus of the Benson Henry Institute for Mind-Body Medicine at Massachusetts General Hospital, has developed much of his career to learning how people can counter the stress response by using a combination of approaches that elicit the relaxation response. They include deep abdominal breathing, focus on a soothing word such as peace or calm, visualization of tranquil sense, repetitive prayer, yoga, and tai chi. Physical activity. People can use exercise to stifle the build-up of stress in several ways. Exercise such as taking a brisk walk shortly after feeling stress not only deepens breathing but also helps relieve muscle tension. Movement therapies such as yoga, tai chi, and qigong combined with fluid movements with deep breathing and mental focus, of all which can induce calm. Social support, confidence, people, acquaintances, co-workers, relatives, spouses, and companions all provide a life-enhancing social net and may increase longevity. It is not clear why, but the buffering theory holds that people who enjoy close relationship with family and friends receive emotional support that indirectly helps to sustain them at times of chronic stress and crisis. Self-care therapy, a positive way to counter stress of is self-care therapy. Nancy Apperson, 2018, of Northern Illinois University has provided steps of for self-care. Number 1, stop, breathe, and tell yourself, this is hard and I will get through this one step at a time. During an unexpected event of crisis, we are faced with dealing with a new reality and it takes time to incorporate what happened into our everyday lives. Identify the step you need to take first, write them down, and focus on each step at a time. If you look at everything you have to do, you will become overwhelmed. Remember, you can only do one thing at a time and focus exclusively on that one thing. Number 2, acknowledge to yourself what you are feeling. All feelings are normal, so accept whatever you are feeling. Once you recognize, name and accept your feelings, you feel less out of control. You can then find a comfortable place to express your feelings. During periods of extreme stress and grief, it is very hard to hold back your feelings, particularly your tears and anger. This is normal, so describe this as grieving of sadness or anger. You are not falling apart, you are grieving or feeling angry or sad. It is important during this time of intense feelings to own your feelings and not hurt yourself or lash out at someone else. Number 3, find someone who listens and is accepting. You don't need advice, you need to be heard. Sharing our story is how we begin to accept whatever happened and integrate it into our new reality. It may be that you just need to let go of your expectation of how things should be and talking about yourself and beliefs is the beginning of the process. Parang sa relationship. Kapag masakit na, let go na. 4, maintain your normal routine as much as possible. Making everyday decisions, deciding to get dressed, doing the dishes, or going to work gives you a sense of control and feels comforting as it is a familiar activity. Be realistic with what you can do and remember everything right now will take you longer to do. Avoid making major decisions based on the stress you feel right now. 5, allow plenty of time for a task. You will not be as productive as you normally are. Accept how much you are able to do right now and recognize it will not be this way forever. During periods of extreme stress, prolonged stress, or after a crisis, your ability to concentrate and focus on task is diminished, and it will take time for your concentration to return. So give yourself extra time and be gentle and accepting of yourself and what you can do. Number 6, task good of yourself. Remember to get enough rest and sleep. Sleep at least 6 hours and not more than 9 hours. If you are having difficulty sleeping, listen to peaceful or slow music and or to progress relaxation before you go to sleep. Sleep helps our body heals and strengthens our immune system. Maganda ding pakinggan ng mga worship song. Eat regularly and make healthy choices. Skipping meals, particularly breakfast, contributes to fatigue, mood swings, and poor concentration. Healthy food choice, not high in simple sugar, maintain blood sugar level, energy, and concentration of the body. Know your limits, and when you need to let go, let go. Some problems are beyond our control. If something cannot be changed, work at accepting it for what it is. Resist the urge to fix the unfixable, to try to control the uncontrollable. Sometimes a mantra helps. It is what it is. I just need to accept it. For things with your control, remember that change times. If you are holding and need to let go, journal about it. Identify or create a nurturing place in your home. A rocking chair, a nice view, and a soothing music are important components to a nurturing place. 20 minutes of spending in a rocking chair reduces both of your physical pain and anxiety. It is like giving yourself a hug. Music and nature sounds nurture our being and lifts our spirit. Practice relaxation or meditation. Go to your nurturing place and listen to guided relaxation tapes. Time spent in meditation or prayer allows your mind and body to slow down and let go of the stress. Take a mental vacation in the midst of stress by relaxing your body, shutting your eyes, and visualizing yourself in your favorite vacation spot or quiet haven. Escape for a while through meditation, reading a book, watching movie, or taking a short trip, or kung ano man yung mga hobby. Self-compassion therapy. Self-compassion is another way to counter stress. Christine Neff, 2012, has discussed self-compassion in her article, The Science of Self-Compassion. Self-compassion entails being warm and understanding toward ourselves when we suffer, fail, or feel inadequate, rather than flagellating ourselves with self-criticism. It recognizes that being imperfect and experiencing life difficulties is inevitable. So we soothe and nurture ourselves when confronting our pain, that getting angry when life falls short of our ideals. We clearly acknowledge our problems and shortcomings without judgment, so we can do what is necessary to help ourselves. We cannot always get what we want. We cannot always be we want to be. When this reality is derived or resisted, suffering arises in who the form of stress, frustration, and self-criticism. When this reality is accepted with benevolence, however, we generate positive emotions of kindness and care that help us cope. Self-compassion recognizes that life challenges and personal failures are part of being human. An experience we all share this. In this way, it helps us to feel less desolate and isolated when we are in pain. Self-compassion praises. NIF provided self-compassion praises when feeling stress or emotional pain. Perhaps when you are caught in a traffic jam, arguing with a loved one, or feeling inadequate in some way. It is helpful to have a set of phrases memorized to help you remember to be compassionate to yourself in the moment. You can take a deep breath, put your hand over your heart, or gently hug yourself. If you feel comfortable doing so, and repeat the following phrases. This is a moment of suffering. Suffering is a part of life. May I be kind to myself. May I give myself the compassion I need. These phrases capture the essence of the three components of self-compassion. The first phrases helps to mindfully open to the sting of emotional pain. You can also just simply say, this is really hard right now, or this hurts. The second phrases reminds us the suffering unites all living beings and reduces the tendency to feel ashamed and isolated when things go wrong in our lives. The third phrases begins the process of responding with help kindness rather than self-criticism, and final phrases reinforces the idea that you both need and deserve compassion in difficult moments. Be experimental with the phrases. Other phrases that may feel more authentic in a given situation are: may I accept myself as I am, may I forgive myself, or may I learn to accept what I cannot change. Self-compassionate letter. An example of a self-compassion exercise is the self-compassionate letter. This exercise has been used in therapeutic programs. Below are the steps in doing the self-compassionate letter exercise as provided by NIF. Candidly describe a problem that tends to make you feel bad about yourself, such as a physical flaw, a relationship problem, or failure at work or school. Note what emotions come up: shame, anger, sadness, fear as you write. Next, think of an imaginary friend who are unconditionally accepting and compassionate, someone who knows all your strengths and weaknesses, understand your life history, your current circumstances, and understand the limits of human nature. Si God, pwede nating imaginary friend, di ba? Di lang imaginary, makikinig yun sa atin. Finally, write a letter to yourself from the perspective: what would you friend say about your perceived problem? What words would he or she use to convey deep compassion? How would your friend remind you that you are only human? If your friend were to make any suggestions, how would they reflect unconditionally understand? When you are done writing, put the letter down for a while and come back to it later. Then read the letter again, letting the words sink in, allowing yourself to be soothed and comforted. comforted. Less stressed, care more. We should be in control of the stress that confronts us every day. Otherwise, when we are overwhelmed by stress, it can be detrimental to our health. Self care and self compassion are two ways to positively confront stress. We should love and care for ourselves more and more each day. Love yourself. So, ayon. So, I hope you learned something today and God bless. Thank you for listening.